Dave. Thanks, yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity, Dave, and thanks for everybody showing up. It's a busy time of year. You've heard me speak before about this kind of stuff, I think, in brief. So I'm glad you've come back to hear a little bit more. Because there's not a huge amount of us, it'd be really nice just to get a view from everybody. So I'm just going to tee up a question for you to think about while I carry on my introduction. And I'm really interested to know what you're all doing to invest in your own leadership development and the development of your team. Just briefly, what you're doing and your view about whether you think you're doing enough or whether you're in a situation where you'd actually like to do more. And if you did do more, what would you choose to do? So it'd be really good at like just a couple of minutes from everybody around the virtual room just to get an understanding of that to tee up the session. And then I can bring out any key themes accordingly from the presentation based on what people are inputting to make it more relevant. So have a think about that and we'll go around the room in a second. But to kind of further my introduction, you all kind of knew I kind of retired last year from my MD position at Brimham's Active. I'd had a couple of senior roles, CEO roles as well. So I've managed a trust, two different trusts, and set up the trading company for Harrogate in Brimham's. And we had a successful kind of 2.5, 3 years at that as well, which was great. Probably retired a bit sooner than I would have liked, but circumstances dictated because of local government reorganisation and decisions that were made. But like you guys, I've kind of walked in your shoes, and I know that it's a really hard job in leisure. I think often outsiders that don't understand the job that you do, it's seen as quite simple. It's uncomplicated. It's just running buildings. How hard is that? It's not life and death. But actually, I think it's a really, really difficult job and really challenging for leaders because you've got quite an intense political dimension which is increasingly challenging because of financial pressures on councils, which affect the politics and local politics. And we've got the advent of popularism and stuff like that, which means that politicians are more keen than ever to want to be presented in a positive light, and they don't want the bad news stories, about dog muck and leisure centres and stuff like this, and be able to keep all their services running despite diminishing budgets. And the pressure is on you guys to do that. So it's not easy at all. It's non-statutory, so you're often at the front of the queue when any cuts come, and that puts pressure on. You've got private sector challenges as well, which put pressures on income and obviously utilities and everything else. So it's a really hard job. And I think it's harder than being in the commercial fitness sector as well, because um, commercial fitness sector for me is fairly easy. It's you capture a market where you can tap into demand and you run a great service and you haven't got any politics around that and you just crack on. And you're not being seen as somebody that's got to appeal to the wider demographic, tackle inequalities and everything else, really hard and cut through the bureaucracy to get things done as well. Really difficult. So it's a really hard job. So why do we do it? Well, because we love it, because you're all public servants. You want to make things better in your communities. It's incredibly fulfilling. The people around you are all passionate. It's a vocation and it's a fantastic job to have and it's a privilege to have, but it's challenging. So hopefully that'll chime with you all. I'm sure it will. That was certainly how I would define my career. Really challenging, but irresistible. And you're all in the game of kind of doing more for less. And I got my first chief exec job in 2012. And I only got the job because of austerity, and I was on the client side originally, and the trust said it couldn't save money, so I went in to do a recovery plan, and eventually, we managed to turn it around. But it was all financially driven why I got involved, and then every role I've had has been all about financial pressure, and a finance director once said to me, "It's about delivering more and better outcomes for less," and that's been stuck in my mind ever since, really. I think it's a great statement and has been my mantra, and I'm sure it'll chime with you all. But then I thought, well, how do you do that? And spent years kind of working out how you optimize performance of your team to deliver more and better outcomes for less. And you may have heard of the quote from Peter Drucker, which he says, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast," which is a fantastic quote. It's so deep and meaningful. And for me, what that means is it doesn't matter what plans you've got or how you want to shape things. And so you've got the best plan in the world to deliver more and better outcomes for less because you've got leaner systems, efficient systems, new product development, you're hiring different people, whatever. You're capturing, the benefits of digital. Unless your culture is really effective and is really singing, your plans won't work or won't be optimized. So for me, it's all about culture. And I think that really plays out in our sector because we are starved of resources. We can't have top heavy management teams. We can't invest thousands in new systems and processes and equipment, although we'd like to. We can't make quick decisions because we're in a political environment. So our biggest foundation and our biggest lever for success is getting our cultures right. So then I thought, well, how do you do that? And I thought, for me, it boiled down to two things: systems, how you set up your systems, and systems which can be engaging and empowering for all your people, and your behaviours, and and your behaviours of yourself is the most important thing because how you behave filters right down without you knowing it and shapes the culture of the organisation, and then the behaviours of your leaders, and then ultimately how everybody behaves with each other, which sets the culture really. Um, so I thought to myself, well, I'd love when I retired to go and help people with the benefits of my learning and experience, which is not, I haven't got all the answers, but I've learned quite a bit over kind of, 13, 15 years in a senior position, you know, battle hardened, been in the trenches, understand what the crack is, walked in your shoes. And I wanted to harness that, but I thought, well, I can go out and talk for 10 minutes like I do now, but what difference would that make? So what I wanted to do was think, well, how do I bring some science to the art of leadership? So I developed a framework called the Performance Blueprint Framework, and I've packaged that and I've been developing it quite vigorously for the last 12 months. And what I wanted to do, someone said to me, they said, we've had lots of leadership development, but people come in and they just throw a load of stuff at us, but they don't ask us where we are. And therefore, they don't know what the gaps are or the development needs. They just throw a load of generic leadership stuff off and send us all away and expect things to change back at the organization. And quite often, people will come in ones and twos from an organization and whole teams don't get involved together. So the two things there for me are, if I'm going to go in and help anybody, it's about having that conversation about, well, where are you at the moment with your leadership and culture, and how do you know? And can we move forward together on your priorities, i.e., you and your senior leadership team collectively? So it's a whole team intervention over time, and it's not just about parachuting in, doing a few courses and workshops. It's about saying where you are, what's your plan to improve, what can we do to turn the dial on improvement? And that might be a mix of workshops, coaching, action learning sets, lots of different mechanisms to drive learning, and then revisiting 12 months down the line to see where you are, to see have you turned the dial on those areas, and putting some real measurement behind this. And I'm going to go into that in a second. But before I do, I'm going to stop there. And hey, Reese, and I'll nominate someone to go first with kind of, what you're up to with your leadership development. Do you think it's enough? Would you like to do more? And if you did, what kind of things would you like to do? And just try and keep it brief, succinct, but impactful. There you go. So, Matt, do you want to go first? And then
I
you
knew you were going
nominate
to do
someone
that.
else.
I knew you were going to do that. Um, which Matt?
Yeah, Matt Parker.
All right, yeah. Um, so I think as an organisation, we are pretty good in terms of leadership development. It's very much a priority for board. We've got a group of board members driven and led by our chair, who is quite people centric and comes from sort of a bit of an organisational development background and recognises the benefits associated with it. Over the last couple of years, I've worked with the board as well to actually determine an annual budget to support it, which we do have now in place. That's fairly substantial, I would say, in the grand scheme of things, and it's not there to be spent. but it's there if we feel there's identified need. So over the last few years, between myself and other members of the senior leadership team, we've undertaken some strengths-based sort of assessment and work as individuals and a collective. A couple of the members of the team who are newer to the role have undertaken some specific formal director training to give them some of the key tools that in theory you need as a director, because they felt and I felt that that would be a benefit to them as part of their annual appraisal process. And again, myself and more recently, one, maybe two of our senior leaders will be getting some coaching or mentoring, slightly different between some of the different team members. Um, I'm firmly in your camp in terms of getting that culture right, Mark. So 100% on board with that. I think can sometimes not be it's not an afterthought, but it can sometimes come down the pecking order when you're spinning so many plates that you just described before that ultimately all come back to finances and council officers and politicians making bizarre decisions or making decisions and not even telling you, but I'm going off on a tangent now. So would like to do more and would like to do more probably in a structured way, certainly as a team. So some of the stuff that you said before probably sounds quite appealing to me.
Thanks, Matt. Brilliant. Do you want to nominate someone else?
Yes, who shall I go with? I'll go with my nearest neighbour. I'll go Darren.
Thanks, Matt. Oh, you a favour there. That's interesting. In terms of our journey, I mean, I've been in with the company about 2.5 years, and I've introduced lots of change, structural change, and we're still on and lots of bringing people together and teams together because they all worked in silos and stuff, and creating some new roles and so on. Like particularly in terms of HR, we didn't have an HR function. We had an SLA with the council, which was pretty damn poor. So we ditched that and reinvested it in our own person. So we're still going through some basics and stuff. So there's nothing in terms of um, a proactive, direct support and intervention leadership program at all, Mark, that we've got in place. But I've been changing the culture and that oil tanker slowly but surely in terms of its ethos, accountability, and a more proactive way of managing the business and growing it and so on. So, but it's on the list, but it's lower down because we've got some further structural changes to do yet. But we've changed the way the business operates and made it more inclusive in terms of decision making and lots of and I've got a more direct interface than my predecessor with more junior management and so on their regular basis. So we've been doing it internally, but not in a more developmental and bring it on to the next stage. I do see the importance of it. So it's perhaps a conversation to pick up in the future, but it's kind of a not no conversation, if you see what I mean, in terms of where we are and some of the other the things happening in the business. But I do see it as quite important and the next logical extension of particularly the softer HR developmental things that the HR manager would lead on, potentially with an external impetus as well.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Timing is key, isn't it? Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to nominate someone else?
Roland?
Thanks, Darren. I think from Lamtis perspective, we have a learning and development team, and I guess when we talk about leadership, it depends on what level of leadership. So I think we're very good at developing junior leaders, and not great at director level and above. So what we have set up is for junior managers, heads off level. We provide online training, but we also provide things like free MBA training courses, leadership training courses, which we pay for. And I would say potentially it's not as easy to get that level of training. You have to jump through a lot of hoops to get. I know one person who had a pre-MBA qualification, which is about £3,600 or sort of, and you have to really show that you're one of the stars of the future, and we invest. It's not easy to get it approved through the right channels. I know I don't think we're doing very it's not great. It's there. Is it accessible? It's maybe not so easy to access. But I think in terms of the supervisors, that level, we've got everything in place. There's lots of training in there, NVQs, apprenticeships, and all that stuff. And we have a talent pool where if you're going to recruit, you go into this, we call it Launchpad. It's a talent pool where you go in to look for the next leaders across all the businesses. And it's easier for us to promote from within through that process. So in summary, what I would say is we don't have anything at the senior level, but the junior management level, there are things in place. So yeah, if I was to score Lambton on that, I would say I'll score us 60% on that.
Thanks, Roland. And being a finance person, you got the metrics in there straight away. Fantastic. Thank you for that. Do you want to nominate someone?
I will nominate who hasn't gone. I will nominate Andy.
Here's Roland. Yeah, very similar to everyone, really. We have a leadership package online, which we've just actually literally set up a training officer now dedicated to monitor that, because we're very conscious we've got quite a sporadic approach to not people doing things, but then capturing what they've done, learning from that, and making sure that information's passed on, and you've got regular CPD and all that goes right down to really basic, not knocking any training, but mandatory training that you'd have to do, right from lifeguard training. I know we're talking about leaderships, but then right up to a full leadership program. So we'd put an hour dedicated resource that starts in September to actually help monitor that approach. And then we've got a real mix of things like ILM courses that we send staff on, professional courses, to, if you're looking at things like finance and accountancy. And then we've got relationship with apprenticeship scheme. So we have a dedicated apprenticeship, and they do leadership courses within the apprenticeship. So we've got several staff going on them, and we've got a mentoring program in place. So they'll work with one of the senior guys as part of their program. And then we have things like we use NTU, Nottingham Trent Uni near us. So recently, one of our guys has just been on MBA course, just finished that, which actually led to a really good thing for us, because they do a program for marketing. So we've just jumped on the back of that, and they've just done a complete 8-week sort of review of all our marketing free of charge, and then provided us with a fantastic presentation at the end and a rebranding of our company, which we're going to start using over this next year to implement that. So that's been really, really useful. And I think it's probably meaning we're then probably going to use that and send some people on their courses with regards to the marketing and side of it as well. So we have a whole different approach depending where you sit within the company and what you're looking for. And that always starts with what you're looking for as an individual. And we do that through the staff appraisals. So we have them annually, like normal. Some people don't want to particularly do them. So, it's encouraging people to involve themselves in that. You won't get out unless you put in. But some people also, we've also recognised the fact some people don't want to do certain things and they're happy doing what they're doing. And you have to respect that and work with that. And as long as they're happy, and we do staff surveys in the building, I'm not saying we run the best company out in the world and everyone loves us, but as long as people are, you're trying to involve them in things, and training isn't the be all and end all, but if that's the way you want to go with it, then we encourage you to do that. So a whole mixture. We have got like we do have a framework so each job role has a framework which we encourage them to go down. So we rag the system and all that sort of thing. And then we obviously have sort of desired type thing where you want to go to the next step. And that's where we sometimes, because again, it's about critical mass, isn't it? So sometimes we use external providers then to provide us with those opportunities. I think that's me.
Thanks, Andy. That's great. Thank you.
No problem.
Who are you going for?
Well, I'm looking at my screen. I'll go with David. I'm not sure if he's the right person to choose, but I'm going to see what David does.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. Okay, it's really interesting listening to people. So from our point of view, when I talk about team, I'm talking about all those people that I pay every month, or we pay every month. But I'm also talking about our AI assistant and also now our virtual assistant, Patch, who works out in Thailand. Absolutely incredible the amount of work we get out of this individual who works for us out in Thailand. It's just incredible. And if you have repetitive tasks, if you have tasks that have clear instruction with a clear output, seriously look at virtual assistants, because there is a massive marketplace out there for finding employees effectively who aren't an employee. So you don't have all those other challenges that come with employing people. So very interesting concept. So what we're attempting to do is just make sure all of our team feel valued as a person in the first instance. So we are developing individuals so that they add value to their life, but add value to our business while they're doing it. So we try to do the life bit first. And we recently had a team member leave us who's joined another organization. And this isn't Richie, by the way, so it's not that person, it's somebody else. And they've come back to us and said, I didn't realize what type of an organization you were until I joined somebody else. The fact that you let us have dentist appointments. I ring you up at 3 o'clock and say, look, I've got to go and see my mum in the care home because this and this and this. Is it okay if I move my hours of work, etc.? And they've suddenly realized the types of stuff that we do to value them as a person so they can be valued as an individual. We do have formal stuff. We do education, we do mentoring, we do coaching with our team members. And it works. There's some really good stuff out there, but it's more about the regular conversation. It's about project management, project responsibility, and exposure to new thinking. You will all know that I am attempting to take a step back in my business and to promote Jules as our new managing director. Hence the reason she's been coming to these. Jules is the person that stands up at Elevate. Jules is the person who speaks on the Simspa stage. Jules is the person who speaks on UK Active. And that's the really hard bit for me around being a perceived leader, is I need to become a perceived influencer of new leadership. And that's a really interesting place to be when you're trying to take a step back. And we talked about ego management and all those types of things. It's really tough for me to say that Jules has presented an award at UK Active. I've never done that. Well, how the hell did Jules get the responsibility? Well, Jules had the responsibility because I wanted her there. I wanted her profile to be raised. I wanted to be there because I want to get my goal, which is to take a bit of a step back. I think the bit that's really interesting for us is really getting to a point where we understand people's comfort zones. Where are they comfortable and where are they happy? Where does that work? Brilliant. Well, let's maximize that. Let's use that because that's where they're comfortable. Also understanding that the only way we can grow and develop individuals in our business is by finding out where the edges of that comfort zone sit and supporting people to be more comfortable in the edge of chaos, on the edge of their comfort zone, etc. And that's the bit we're working on a lot at the minute and attempting to do that is understand where the edge of the comfort zone is and how we can grow and develop people to be outside of that comfort zone so it gets wider and wider in their breadth. So that's what we're doing, Andy. I hope that helps. And I'm going to pass the baton on, as I would, to Matt at Leisure SK. Matt, yours, mate.
Thanks, David. Yeah, morning. Yeah, interesting listening. I think we have a slightly different challenge in terms of I think the training opportunities we provide are good. We've put a structured process in place, partnering with training providers and the ILM or CMI to try and it put a standard across the business. The challenge we've got more is on the culture side and people actually wanting to do the training and realizing what's in it for them. They're more based on they want to do the technical training, IOSH, NEBOSH, NPMQ, things like that. And when it's about development, I think we get a lot of blank faces of, oh, do I have to do it? And whereas when we launched it, we thought everybody would jump, hands in the air. Yeah, I really want to do this. I want to develop. So, yeah, I think the part you started on around culture was probably the biggest take home for me. Is that's the bit we need to nail. The actual bit sat behind it to develop the training side are probably in place and quite good. Another challenge we've got that probably isn't unique to us, but is that when we've spoke to the kind of leadership team of Leisure SK, we haven't really got anybody that wants to go anywhere in terms of nobody wants to progress any higher, but they're not anywhere near retirement. So the challenge then for the next rung down is they look at the culture of, well, nobody's going to go anywhere, so there's no opportunity. And I think we're in a slightly negative loop with things like that, where the training opportunities are there, but probably the chance to develop people once they've completed the training isn't. And I think, yeah, that probably sums it up pretty well at Leisure SK.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt.
I think maybe we've got one more.
Is that me?
Reece left, are we?
It is you, Reece.
Save the best till last, Reece.
All right, okay. Thanks. I'll apologise in advance for this fairly rambled response to this, but I've been scribbling away sort of things off the top of my mind. I think culture is everything, and quite a few people have said that, but we've been on quite a change journey from the previous operator into the new, and there's a number of things we're trying to do, but really more than anything, I need all of the team to present leadership, and in the fact that we own the company, it's our company. So we won't succeed unless everybody does their bit, and that means lots of things, from rec attendants coming in doing their job to senior leadership team, and that means lots of things to different people. But that kind of empowerment piece is something I tried to ram home quite a lot, just talking about it. And of course, that I said, that means different things to different people. But some of the things, I'm really conscious of succession planning, so we're doing some future leader stuff. So that's kind of coming in, because I got a real talented group of up and coming young people who I want to keep. They're the future, the next me, the next senior leadership team people, all of that stuff. So I'm going to start that off later on this year. I've got a good cohort. Middle managers, again, it's that constant kind of reminder that they are leaders, because the previous operator who was in, if I'm honest, told them what to do. And that's not what I want. I want people to wake up and make decisions and be brave in it, and make mistakes and own it. So that kind of empowering those middle managers that they are decision makers, and have those conversations about well, what do you think? I don't wait for me to tell you what to do. Go and be bold, and that takes time. And the language and behaviours need to reflect that as well. So the senior leadership team, which I'm still building, I've had to build my own senior leadership team. And again, it's David was spot on what he said there around amplifying their profiles. I don't want to be necessarily the one up on stage giving the awards out or being the front facing thing. I mean, sometimes people want to speak to, which is fine, but my job is to give them the platform to just go and be brilliant. I think that's what I'm trying to do. So there's no structure to this. This is all kind of in my mind, and I'm trying to, as a kind of fairly new to this myself, I'm still trying to figure this out. But I'm really conscious of that. Go and do it, and have fun doing it. We're doing we should be doing a good job. It also extends into things like behaviours and values. So I'm trying to write that into JDs now, set of behaviours and values. All right, we want you to have the X, Y, and Z qualifications, but actually we all want to buy into a certain set of behaviour and values, which I'm just trying to tie up now with some with a group of staff. They're coming up with it. I don't want to be the one to tell them. So I'm trying to create that from within. And it does extend to the board as well, so we're trying to do some work around governance to strengthen our board in terms of that direction. So I think that's a really important one as well for us, because I need good people around me to help us on that journey with different experiences. So we're doing some good work on that at the moment. And lastly, I kind of just say about me, I'm really aware that I've got a lot of work to do. Like, I try to be the best I can, but that behaviors, and Mark, you opened the session by saying, that challenging environment, but being consistent in those behaviors. And sometimes that's bloody hard, when you've got all sorts of things happening. So, we are working with partners, of course. We got different groups, and we're working on this framework of what we think we want to do in terms of leadership and qualifications. But it is still very much a work in progress. So that was a real download, guys. So apologies for the ramble, but that's kind of gives you a bit of a picture of the space we're in.
Oh, thanks, Reece. That was great. Can I just thank you all for that? Because some of those things, quite personal as well, that you talk about leadership and how you're driving the organization and so on. So thanks for being so open and for sharing. It's really helpful. I just made a number of kind of quick comments there, and forgive me if I've missed stuff, but Roland, what I picked up from you was that differential investment levels, and particularly not investing a lot with your senior team, but everywhere else in the organization, and often we see that a lot in organizations where particularly the MD or CEO forgoes their personal development experience at the expense of others, or particularly, directors in the organization. So there's that phrase, isn't there, of who's looking after the people that are looking after the people, and
Yeah.
if there's anything you take away from today, perhaps, just a little thought to yourself about what am I doing for my own development here? And that might not just be the hard skills, because, you're seasoned practitioners, you've developed and understood those hard skills over careers to get where you are. But it's the softer stuff, and even just taking soundings and things like that, and having a coach or someone to talk to, which is really powerful. And Dave, you mentioned that coaching was a big aspect of your business and the work with your team, in particular around values and behaviors as well, and working outside of comfort zones, pushing people there where they learn, which is amazing. So I just want to come back to you at the end in a second, Dave, if that's all right. If you can, oh, no, the dog's going bananas. If you can perhaps just elaborate a bit on the coaching stuff and what that means for you. And if anybody else is having coaching or investing in coaching for themselves, if you're happy just to share some insights on that, and why you chose to do that, and the benefits you're getting, that would be really helpful, just briefly. And then I'll move into my presentation after that. And then Matt, you talked about kind of those hard and soft skills and those technical things, and the fact that, whilst it's generally okay to get people on those kind of those elements of training, some of the softer stuff or some of the team and leadership stuff, people don't often associate that value, and it's getting that motivation to go on it. And I think, again, definitely a common problem that I've come across. Darren, you were talking about timing, and it's almost like there's never a good time, is there? Because, you're always chasing a time where you've got a window of opportunity, but, it's just so busy all of the time. But nonetheless, you've got a strategic kind of journey in mind, haven't you? And certain things that you need to get in place, and then you'll build the leadership development on top of that. So again, completely understand that. And Reece, you talked about that notion of leadership at all levels, that devolved leadership, and that real focus in your organization where you're saying, actually, I recognize the power of that middle management tier, and I want to drive a lot of development there because I know that's where the change happens. And we all know that, don't we? As much as we'd love to think we're important and our senior leadership team is important, it's the middle layer of managers that really make the change and the difference to the organization. And it's how we, or you as a team, create the conditions for them to thrive so that they can have agency and autonomy, and they can make decisions and do things in the right way and work effectively. So that was a really interesting comment there, Reece, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. But certainly in my understanding and the way I've worked in the past, creating the organization with the right kinds of systems where you've got agility and accountability throughout the organization that gives people agency and empowerment to get on and do. And then also be able to work out that comfort zone, like Dave says, with support, and to pop back into the comfort zone to have a rest and come out again and feel that they haven't got that judgment, they've got that growth mindset. Those are all the things that really shape culture and the things that I've looked at. So just coming back on the coaching, Dave, can I just go back to you? Maybe just to give us an input around coaching, why you invested, the value you've got, how perhaps you administer that within your organization as well. And if anyone else wants to chip in after Dave, please do so, and then we'll move on. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Well, a lot of this goes back to something a few of you will all remember, which was the Community Sports Leaders Award. I think it was the third badge I got, 25-meter swimming badge, cycling proficiency, and then the Community Sports Leaders Award. And, I was a coach, I've got badminton, squash, hockey, etc. And I think you sometimes look at coaching and you go, what is it? What's it about? So for me, it was about technical skills. So have they got the technical skills to do what they need within the environment? Do they operate as a team? Do they understand what the goal is, and do they understand their contribution to that goal? So that effectively are the right people in the right place at the right time, doing the right things. But also we're focused on an outcome. If it's a sport, it's around winning and winning well. So when we look at our team, we then have access for individuals, so they can choose to be coached by individuals. But what we've got is, at the moment, we're using Disruptive Panda. We're using Libby. So Libby is helping do one-to-one coaching with our team members, and I have no understanding of what we haven't asked Libby to do something with somebody. We've given the opportunity for our team members to talk to Libby around what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve it. There's no feedback from Libby at all. We'll get a general picture at the end of it to say, look, these are the types of things holistically you need to look at as a business in order to make that work. And so that gives them that coaching activity. I myself expose myself to coaching, and it's really interesting. We've just got this new marketing manager beta, and what I now know about Instagram is unbelievable. And that's me being coached. That's me learning from somebody who has far more competency in something than I've ever got, and that's a really nice piece. Matt, I work with Matt a lot and his team, but I'm learning so much from being a board member about politics, about what motivates a local authority, what motivates individuals in that local authority. That's my coaching that I'm getting. I'm really privileged to have mutual mentoring with Andy Reid, and we coach each other now. It's really interesting in those conversations on how we test things and how we make things work. So for me, coaching is a combination of things. From a team point of view, they now have access to a professional coach who is very, very good at what she does, and is helping those individuals to be a better version of themselves, and therefore achieve a better outcome for all of us within the business.
Thanks, David. That sounds exciting when that first kind of phase of coaching has reached a milestone and Libby can come back to you and say, actually, let's look at some common themes here. And it can be, anonymous, but these are some of the themes which I think might help you support your OD plan or your improvement plan for your team. And I know you'll be very open-minded about that because you are quite tuned into the psychological dynamics behind leadership and value in people from everything you said. So that's great. Or maybe it'll be Jules that will pick that up in her new role, and you'll be coaching Jules.
Yeah, or I'll just be sat watching cricket somewhere.
Yeah, or whatever. Anyone else having coaching? And anyone else want to mention about coaching?
Mark, I did a bit coming out of COVID. Actually, I had six sessions with somebody, which kind of I was a bit of a crash test dummy for them because they were kind of just coming out of a qualification, I think, and it was really hard to start with. When they started talking about you, it was like really awkward for the first kind of session or two. When you come up with, I think that I can't remember the kind of point of it was to come up with this sort of. Well, I think it was around your why. What's your professional and personal why, and it got really deep. Getting into like you as a character. But at the end of it was really, really good. And we didn't carry on. It was because it was six sessions, but. I get it. It was really good, so I'd highly recommend it. It's just something which I probably never got back to, but I understand the power of it. But yeah, I just remember how awkward it was. The kind of silences, and it's obviously a thing for a coach because they let you kind of fester, I think, and kind of draw stuff out of you. But that kind of uncomfortableness, stay with me. But yeah, I'm incredibly positive about the experience.
That's really insightful, actually, Reese, and thanks for sharing that. Again, it's a personal thing, and you're quite open. I mean, you'll share this kind of stuff because I think you look at yourself as being on a constant improvement journey, personal development. You'll say, "Yeah, I had this. This is what it did for me, and actually, I learned something from that." And coaching is an interesting concept, and it sounded like you had a really good coach because. One of the indicators of a good coach is that they allow silences, and you said awkward silences because that's where the real thinking and reflection happens. And of course, a coach isn't there to fix you or mentor you or give solutions. it has to draw those solutions out from yourself. And sometimes they don't happen in a session or a series of sessions. It might take months, but eventually you'll have that epiphany in the shower that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't have had that 2 or 3 months worth of coaching, and you come up with those solutions. And it's a great tool, but obviously, like anything else, there's good coaches, there's not so good coaches, and it's about having chemistry as well. And I think, Dave, you alluded to that, didn't you, about finding the right coach for the right people? But it can be extremely powerful. I had some coaching from a lady that coached me from Dubai. She worked in Dubai. She was from the UK. And I managed to, she was £500 an hour, but I managed to get her for free because obviously there was no way I was paying £500 an hour, because she was doing the highest level international coaching qualification she could do, and she was looking for CEOs to coach, and she was signposted to me by another colleague, and I was absolutely blown away by her. I couldn't believe the quality and where she got me in terms of my mindset. It was just outstanding. So, I would actually be tempted to pay her 500 quid if I needed her again because she was so good, but I was so privileged to have that. And I think when you've had an experience with such a high quality individual and you recognize the power of it, you think, crikey, why didn't I do this 20 years ago? It would have saved me so much aggravation. Really, really good. Before I move, Reece, did you want to?
I was going to say, I think it's just worth saying as well with coaching, it was the kind of not just the sessions, it was a journey afterwards. Because when it gets you thinking, you end up reading blooming books and all sorts and digging deeper into all these kind of theories and that kind of. So it's almost like a little bit of an educational piece on the whole thing. So if anyone does do, I think you just find yourself on this kind of journey for a short period where you do learn. So it's just as well as those sessions, there's the additional value you get from it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Reece. That's really helpful. So I don't think there's anyone else wants to come in, so I'm going to move now into my presentation. So what I'm going to do is I've got some slides to share. It's not going to be death by PowerPoint. I'd really like some questions, well, certainly like some feedback at the end, just in relation to what you thought and what you think about it. Obviously, there's no obligation here at all. I set this thing up not to make money, but to do something that I'm passionate about and to keep me busy. And if I make a few quid, that's brilliant. But just consistent with that statement I said earlier about more and better outcomes for less, if you do want to work with me, you will get more and better outcomes for less because I'm very cheap comparative to other leadership things. And I think it's pretty good quality. Well, I do anyway, but it's developing all the time and it's a personalized service. So there you go. Right, here we go. Screen share. Bear with. Okay. Right, here we go. So what I'm going to share with you, I'm just going to walk through is an exemplar report that if people go with my performance blueprint journey, the first part of the journey is initial meeting to understand where you are, and then the administering of a bespoke employee experience survey, which Dave and his team kindly did for me way back when I first started, and I've developed it since then, and I still need to give Dave his results back, so a sincere apology. But the problem with Dave is he's got a small team and they all scored off the scale high on everything. So it actually doesn't really tell us a great deal other than great job, Dave, crack on. So this one I'm sharing is kind of an anonymized survey that I did. And the survey is designed at whole organizational level, so all employees. And I've done it with 4 organizations now. This is the only organization that said to me, can you do it for a specific team in our organization? And they had some challenges with their aquatics team and wanted to understand about how they could resolve that. So this was done just for the aquatics team within a leisure organization, hence the nice picture of a little girl in a rubber ring. So this is the report that they received. Obviously, I've anonymized it with their kind of, an outline of what it is and recommendations. And what I do is I administer the report. I do an introductory session to get everyone engaged with it, all the leaders and managers, so they can kind of advocate it. We do the survey, and then I report back the findings to the leadership and management team, and I also go back and speak to the respondents as well as a group session, again, to help them interpret what it's saying, and that drives engagement. And then the next stage is we can do improvement plans, or we can do workshops, we can do coaching, we can do whatever. But quite often the organisation might say, leave that with us. You know, we've got our own L&D team or whatever, but we'll use this insight to drive the learning and development. So it's a kind of bespoke solution, and it's kind of mix and match. So what this does is it just tells you a little bit about the framework, which you need to know, a bit about the survey methodology. I'll go through the scores, and you'll see how they're kind of the scores are kind of interpreted and turned into insights and action, and then some kind of next steps, opportunities for next steps. But please chip in if you want to. So the framework itself is across four areas. And remember at the start, I talked about, you know, how do we optimize organizational performance? How do we get more and better outcomes for less? For me, it's about systems and behaviors. That's what it distills down to. I think you've all reinforced that with your input today. So the 4-point framework that I developed was basically around how do we turn the dial on systems and how do we turn the dial on behaviors. Purpose and direction are more system-led. Mindset, environment are more behavioral orientated. So purpose, Dave, I think you mentioned it at the start. Someone else might have mentioned it as well. I certainly alluded to it in my introduction, in that we're all really purpose-driven in leisure. It's a vocation, so that's an advantage we've got. The trick is are your people aligned with that purpose? You know, are we all bought in? And I think Reece talked about values and other things, and they're key to purpose and how you approach purpose. So that's the first thing. It's always the starting point. You know, and do people have a common understanding of it? You know, and quite often you get to large organizations or organizations with facilities spread across the geographic area. And as leaders, we make an assumption that everybody's aligned with the purpose, and we don't reinforce it enough. And that does have quite a detrimental effect really on engagement levels. And we find that with the survey. And then direction, how do you translate your purpose into organizational direction? So this is translating strategy into action, or strategy into a business plan that filters all the way down. Andy mentioned about one-to-ones, you know, so at your one-to-ones, are you reinforcing the purpose? Do people understand what their role is in the overall organization vision, strategic plans? You know, how's that articulated? Can you rely on your leadership and management team that that's being done efficiently and effectively and consistently? And what does that direction look like? And then what corporate comms have you got around that? And that's really important. And I know you'll know that. We're just making it explicit today. And then in terms of the behaviors, the mindset piece, and again, Reece talking about his coaching experience, my own coaching experience, my own personal journey, is reaching that epiphany where actually, if you want to influence others, you have to understand yourself first and what's driving yourself and what's happening inside your own internal communications, which perhaps makes your behaviors sometimes inconsistent, suboptimal, sometimes emotionally led when they shouldn't be. So that whole mindset piece gets into those psychological dynamics. You know, how long can you function outside your comfort zone before it starts becoming counterproductive? When do you need to go back in? Who have you got helping you with that? And then what appreciation do you have of other people and the fact that everybody's different, you know, and this is where the Myers-Briggs comes in and all that kind of stuff. And how do you mesh all that together? So mindset is fundamental around organizational behavior, and the journey does start inside out with you. And as a leader, we all have to be therapists as well as you know, managers, you know. So, and then the last piece is environment, which is really the bit that shapes the culture. It's the conditions that people operate in and how you can optimize those conditions so people feel generally empowered and engaged, and how you've got that kind of leadership and agency at all levels. Because we are in a world where people don't like being told what to do. They like the agency and they like to be involved in guiding their own journeys within organizations, even though they have to operate within a framework and a level of accountability. So I have these 4 areas, and then each area's got subcategories, and I've put a lot of work into developing this and ensuring it's kind of relatively robust and valid. And the survey is 50 questions long, and it goes in to all these subcategories and gets a determination about where the organization is around that. Now, okay, so when we've done all that and we've got the insights from the survey, what do we do? And this is just a quick kind of headline kind of dashboard, if you like, of the types of learning that may be recommended. And each organisation is different depending on the outcomes of the survey. Some organisations might be really strong on purpose, but really quite weak on direction. They're not translating that into direction. So what do? We focus on direction. Some organisations might be great on purpose and direction, but actually the behavioural conditions in the organisation aren't optimal because the people's leadership and management style needs recalibrating, or some of the organizational conditions that people are operating, they don't feel they're getting the support. The intention might be there from the leadership team, but it's not actually translating into the support that people want. People don't feel engaged and empowered. There might be a slightly top-heavy approach and command and control structure, even though you might not be intending it. But this gives you an opportunity to understand how people feel about that. So we'll focus on the priorities across those 4 framework areas. And of the 4 organisations I've worked with so far, there's distinct differences across those 4 framework areas. And what's come out is very clear insights in terms of where the strengths are and where the areas for development are. And when I've played that back to the senior leaders, they've said, wow, this is kind of what we thought, but this has really brought it to reality. And we've recognised the importance of the fact we need to address this and do something about it. The methodology is the survey's a 5-point Likert scale. We kind of rag rate things through the scale. It'll take about 10 minutes to fill out the survey, 10-15 minutes through the 50 questions. Now, this is the dashboard that the organisation gets back in terms of the headlines. And you can see with this particular team, everything was above the midpoint, so pretty good. Everything's above 2.5, so they're doing all right. But you can see the areas of focus, which is direction and environment. So in terms of systems, this organization's really good and it's a mature organization. It's got really robust systems in place. But actually, the behaviors weren't on a par with the effectiveness of the systems, So in terms of environment and the conditions, and where the strong purpose was that the overall organization had a really clear purpose. People were bought into that, but this particular team in the organization didn't feel that they had clear direction in relation to how they contributed to the overall purpose. And in the environment element, they felt that they weren't getting the support and recognition, which meant they were engaged and also they weren't necessarily empowered. They felt there was a lot of being told what to do rather than being part of ongoing discussions to shape the direction that would deliver the vision. So all that came out. What we also do is we do NPS, which is one question, and it's an NPS from an employee perspective, not a customer perspective. But it gives us a really good idea of overall loyalty and satisfaction levels of people in the organisation. And actually, you can cross-reference this against the other framework elements and the scores that are coming out there, and this is interesting because overall, this team was an engaged team. Everything was above the midpoint on the 4 framework areas. Work to do on direction and environment because they didn't feel engaged and supported as they would have liked to have done, and that really reflects in the NPS score, which is pretty good for leisure. But it's saying actually it could be better, but there's already a good foundation to build on. We also do some wellbeing questions, just a short series of wellbeing questions, which are a yes and no answer, particularly around 3 areas: behaviors, so what they're doing now in relation to looking after themselves, and that might be diet, nutrition, sleep, everything else. And also what support they're getting from the organisation to help them look after themselves, and the kind of sense of stress that they may or may not be feeling in the workplace. Now, interestingly, every organisation that I've worked with so far has done pretty good, apart from the stress, and the stress has been rag rated in every organisation, which is interesting. And I think that's reflective of the pressured environment that we're all operating in at the moment. Everybody's under a lot of pressure. And quite often, I mean, this particular team, it's a case of we know we've got support out there, we know we've got resources in the organisation, but we're not actually engaging with the resources and support we know is there, and it's not making a difference to us. And that's what came out here. So what we do then is we come up with a set of priorities for action. And I mentioned early that we won't work on all areas of the framework at once. And clearly here the priority was direction, then environment, mindset, and purpose, and particularly direction and environment are the priorities, and some ideas for how the organisation might do that. In terms of the detail, so I've given you the headlines. What we also talk about is, well, where we know where we are, but where are we trying to get to? So this is what success looks like for purpose. And this is something that can be tested verbally within leadership teams, within team meeting environments. You can say to your team, well, we've done the survey, let's have a conversation. How far away do you think we are from meeting this success criteria on purpose, or the same for direction and mindset and environment? Those are really interesting conversations, and conversations which anecdotally can support the data that's in the survey. And leaders and managers are encouraged to have those. So this is not a survey where you come in, you do it and go, thanks, all right, great, lovely report, shown at my board, brilliant, move on. It creates ongoing conversations at one-to-ones and at team meetings about where you are against the success criteria, and can be built into those conversations. And you can see here on purpose, although it's really strong, one of the subcategories, alignment, is lower, and it's still strong, but it's lower. And that's because although everybody's bought into the purpose and values, there's some specifics about this particular team where they felt there was a misalignment between where they wanted to go in terms of delivering the overall purpose and the overall organisation is, and they felt they weren't listened to. So that was why that really came out. So we give scores on that, and I produce some insights, and they'll be taken forward into a plan. And then it's the same for the other areas. Now, obviously, the key weakness here is feedback, 2.5, and direction was the weakest area overall. Again, but this team felt that, great, we're just left to get on with stuff. We don't really know what's going on in the wider organisation. We don't really get any feedback that helps us develop as people and helps us understand how we contribute to the wider vision and purpose of the organisation. And that was really stark. But you'll see that goal scores pretty high. Yeah, we know where the organisation is going. We're told where we're going and all that. We just don't feel engaged in it. And what you can't do as a leader is assume, and you can't say, well, we've told people they should understand. It's about, well, maybe they should, but they don't. So what are you going to do about it? Because people's feelings aren't wrong. You can't deny people's feelings. And this is the sentiment. This is how they feel. So this shines a really, really important light on what's going wrong, and holds a mirror up in front of the leadership team. Say, this is how your people are feeling. This is where the challenge is to turn the dial on your culture. And then the same with mindset. Now, one of the low scores here on mindset overall is high, but again, appreciation was coming out as low. So this is, we get on with our teammates. I accept how other people behave. I tolerate things. I know what my colleagues' strengths and weaknesses are. I adapt my personality to work with others, so we all get on. All that kind of stuff, really good. But actually, our organisation doesn't feel it's one that appreciates each other, which ties back into the feedback and the alignment of the purpose. So there's a common thread coming out here about those appreciation signals. And then the last one is environment. And again, what's scoring low here is connectivity and facilitation. So from everything I've just said, there's a feeling that we're disconnected from the broader organisation. We're tight as a team, but we feel disconnected because of the feedback and the alignment and the appreciation. And facilitation is more about how the organisation supports teams and individuals, how they help them to be empowered and engaged and have their own agency. And again, they thought that was low as well. So we've got strategies there. That's just the overall scorecard for well-being, which I told you about, where stress was a concern. There's a further analysis in terms of that in the report. We get some recommendations about how to turn the dial on that. This is just the dashboard on NPS, and it was 42 here, which is reasonably good, but that's just a general industry or organizational kind of continuum of from kind of needs improvement to excellent, just to give you a rough idea where you are. Dave will know all about this far more than I do, but it's difficult to benchmark because everyone's situation is different. It's different across different sectors and so on. But the key thing is, it's gives you an idea, and it enables you to dig down and understand then, what would improve people's loyalty and satisfaction? What can you do to improve that. And then this is my last slide before I open it up for feedback and any questions. So what I wanted to do is combine the art of leadership with science. I wanted to develop a tool which could give us some really powerful insights in terms of where the organization is, in terms of its systems and behaviors, and the things that it could do to improve those, to turn the dial on culture, to get more and better outcomes for less and create a more optimal, higher performing organization. So this is the starting point. You can see, hopefully you'll see it gives you some really good insights. But then there's a conversation with the CEO, with the MD to say, where do you want to go next? And that's obviously an optional conversation. I can facilitate a discussion about where you might go and use your own resources to do it. I can jump in and do bits and bobs to support as well. One of the things is qualitative insights, those team meetings and discussions about the 4 areas and where it might go. The other things are, have you got a cultural improvement plan? You've all got a strategy, you've all got a business plan. Have you got a plan that's going to actually drive cultural improvement? Do you want one? Would that be helpful? Could you use the insights in something like this to develop that? What kind of learning experience would you like for your senior team to all come together to have it together, which also has the consequential effect of driving cohesion within the team because they're going through a deep and meaningful learning experience together where there's some really tough questions asked and some hard realities to face up to, as well as some really positive stuff. And then the coaching and action learning, we've talked about coaching, but action learning, if you've not done that, it's a really powerful tool. And that's where you can convene a team of people. It might be a leadership team, middle management team, or a team of swimming teachers, for example. And it's about facilitating that, bringing them together and saying, right, where are we now? Where do we want to be? What is everybody's ideas? It's almost circle time. Everyone's sat in a circle, but it's a facilitated team coaching style of experience. And then to follow up again with to see where you are in terms of improvement 6 to 12 months down the line. Okay, there you go. Thanks for listening. Take any feedback.
I'll start, Mark, if that's okay. I don't know if this is coaching, mentoring, or just blunt feedback. Please do not use the word cheap when you are describing the services that you offer.
Okay,
Honest to God, as soon as the word cheap comes in, it's got a totally different connotation. It's incredible value for money, built on competency, will support your teams and grow. Cheap makes it sound like it's not been thought about, it's not got a value.
No, I'll take that, Dave. And to be honest, I wouldn't have said it in any other form other than this
Good.
because we're all very close. So no, I definitely wouldn't say that in any other environment. No.
Brilliant.
Amongst friends, though, I think. So that's the reason.
Right. So I don't know if you can see the hands up, Mark.
Yeah,
So
I can think
Darren's hand
Darren,
up. Go.
Darren, then Matt.
Okay, thanks, guys. I thought it was really good, Mark, in terms of the simplicity of it. I like the 4 areas. It's logical, and then the outputs, and then what you described at the beginning, how you positioned it. It's not just a generic approach, and it's more personalised. And as you quite rightly pointed out and stressed, that it depends on very much what you find in terms of where the business is at and the organisational journey and maturity, and or not, as the case may be. So you've got to set that as an expectation, which is good. Just on the example you gave there and the other experiences you've had from what you've been doing to date, kind of to what level do you go to in terms of engaging or with staff? Is it right to the shop floor, or is it largely at the kind of junior management upwards level?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for the comments and feedback, Darren. That's brilliant. Take that as a positive. And yeah, originally, so this is evolving as I go along and work with different organisations. And the short answer is I'd just respond to the demand on that and I'd flex. My original thinking was that I would predominantly be working with MDs, CEOs and their direct reports, just their senior team. And the idea was that I would go in and examine where they are and help them kind of, turn the dial on culture through systems and behaviours. But then what's become apparent is, people do want those interventions at lower down in the organisation, and really happy to do those. I've just done. Someone flagged something about change management, so I've just done a course on change management for lots of middle managers, for example. And one of the clients that I work with said, look, we don't want to share this back to our practitioners. Can you come in and do a session for us? So I did. So the answer is I'll bespoke delivery to whatever people need. I'm quite happy to do that because I enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I thought it was brilliant, and at times I thought, "Wow, he's made this just for me and the challenges I've got at work." That's how it seems to come across. One of the things I wanted to ask, and I think you've just covered it in the bespoke part, anyways. I think one of the challenges we've got is you'd probably have 3 different sets of surveys and results. So you spoke about bespoking. So could you do it where you did the survey for the board, survey for the senior management, and then a survey for kind of junior management, and then a bespoke package there to try and align it all? Because that's where I think we're failing with the culture is we've got, different people think we're at different stages of the journey, or probably better to say actually different areas are at different stages of the journey. And it's probably just us recognizing that. And yeah, I think it'd definitely be worth, I'd like to arrange a follow-up call to discuss. So thanks a lot. That was great.
Thanks, Matt. And I am so glad you asked that question because I forgot to mention it in the presentation. It's such an important question. So this particular survey was done for a discrete team within the organization, or it's actually designed for a whole organizational survey. So it is anonymous, but it's categorized by job role, or you can categorize it by facility or however you want to categorize it, but principally by job role. Now, the beauty of doing that, or job group, now the beauty of doing that, you can get the different levels in the organization and compare and contrast sentiment across those, which is, I think, exactly what you're asking for. And then because it does, there's different sentiment within different job groups or even different facilities within the business, and we can unpick that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Reese?
Yeah, so comment and partially a reminder, Mark. We're booked in to do this with my team on the 17th of September. So, yeah, I mean, the intention, the group you'll have on that day will be anybody with a supervisory responsibility upwards. So anybody that's a team leader, right up to me and senior leadership team. So what I'm really looking forward to getting into is the reality. Spoke about what we're trying to create and some of those, we have lots of problems. It's certainly not it's not all sweetness and light. I wouldn't ever claim that it is, but I'm really looking forward to those results and hearing the hard truths, if you like, and see where we're at with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, 17th of September, we'll have you involved at Plymouth Active. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks, Reese. No more hands up, Dave.
No,
Thanks,
there isn't,
everyone.
Mark. So brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to just stop the recording now. So a big thank you, Mark, for your time and effort. And thank you for all the questions from everybody else.